Hey everybody, it's me, Kathy. You know, for the longest time, I've wanted to do something with wild rice, and I can't find it anywhere around here. So I haven't been able to do anything. And finally, I bought some on Amazon. I got it in the mail yesterday. And it was a cool and rainy and windy weekend here in Fayetteville this weekend. So I decided to make some soup. I had some chicken thighs, and I cooked them, pulled the meat. I have all the vegetables and some wild rice and some kale. And I think I'm going to start a new series called Soup Sundays now that we're into the colder weather. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to publish it today, but we're going to call it Soup Sunday. And here it comes. Enjoy. We've got a good angle on this pot right here. And when I picked the chicken thighs after I cooked them, I had some chicken fat. So instead of butter, we're going to use that for our fat. And it's going to be so tasty, flavorful. It doesn't want to come separated from the other parts. YOLO perfect. Sorry, I just had the music on and it's still in my head. This looks like I'm doing a lot, but I'm not getting very much out at a time, so it's just a little bit at a time. And we might have to add some butter. Actually, I'm just going to put the whole thing. And that's that. And we're over medium heat right now. Had to give Kelly the dish. She's loving it. Anyway, we're going to heat this up nicely. And we are going to add our, looks like we got a couple of little solids in there too, and that's okay. That's going to just add more flavor. So, as with any soup, I'm going to use this for a spoon holder. We start with our trio of aromatic vegetables, our mirepoix. And that starts with onions. This is one onion chopped. And followed by celery. This is about two stalks, chopped, diced. And about 2 carrots. This is really one, but it was huge. It's the one I bought at the farmer's market a bit ago. And in goes our aromatics. Go the dirty dishes. Stir those to blend them well with this chicken fat. And we are going to be using some chicken stock, so we don't want to go too heavy on the salt, but we do need to season this guy, so down this goes. And the first thing we're going to start with is a few turns of salt. Followed by pepper. Oh, come on, baby. You can do this. And I don't know why, but I felt like this soup needed a little bit of tarragon. Like I said, if you've ever cooked with me in the past, you know I love me some tarragon. So we're going to put some of that in there. And some freeze-dried chives. You know, I attempted to do a second planting of my garden with some winter crops. And one of those winter crops was leeks. And the squirrels have been getting in. We're gonna put a little tiny pinch of red pepper flake. Do as much as you want. That's all enough for me. So anyway, getting back to my garden, I planted some leeks along with some other things, beets and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and stuff. So, but the leeks, actually, I don't think I think any of them are really going to make it to fruition because we're already into November and they're only, you know, yo high. But the good news is I can pull those leeks out and use them for chives when it's time to pull them out. So they won't go to waste. And we're going to be softening up these vegetables nicely. We are softening up nicely. just about there. The carrots are really what you got to worry about. And because our rice and our chicken are pre-cooked, we don't have to cook this soup a long time. So we're just kind of putting it together. So we're going to let that go for just another little minute, and then we're going to put it together. All right, there you have it. Soft, and you should smell this. Like I said, they call them aromatics for a reason. And when I push on this carrot, it yields to my rubber spatula, so that means that we're in a good place. So what we're going to do now is sprinkle a little flour. I'm going to make this a creamy soup because I like me some creamy soups. So we're going to make a light one this time. It doesn't have to be real thick. So a couple tablespoons. We're going to incorporate that. So there is no flour showing, because if there's flour showing, you're going to get lumps. I've said this before. And I will say it again. Okay, and we're going to cook this down for just a minute or two. Well, and mix together some chicken broth. But before we add our chicken broth, we're going to add some chopped fresh garlic. This was about 5 cloves. I think that's probably good enough. I'm going to stir that in, let it go for about a minute till it gets a little more aromatic. Now, this soup would be very favorable to mushrooms if you wanted to put some mushrooms in here. I don't care for mushrooms, and seeing that I'll be eating this myself, I'm not going to do it. But mushrooms would go well with the wild rice and the chicken and the kale and the aromatic vegetables, which are now ready for chicken broth, which I've got all mixed up right here. And we're going to pour that around. Start with a little and see how thick we get. We're going to be adding half and half to this too, so that's going to be more liquid. Judging by what's happening here, I'm going to add in the rest. So this is 2 cups of chicken broth. You can use Swanson or collagen or, you know, better than bouillon, which is what I use because I've been used to using chicken base my whole life. And that's what's closest to what I'm used to. Well, not my whole life, but better than half. Better than bouillon for better than half. All right, and we're gonna stir this constantly and see how thick it gets. I'm actually gonna ramp up the heat just a little bit because we wanna bring this to a boiling point. So stirring and stirring some more. Okay, we're getting warmed through. I decided at the last minute that I wanted to add in a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, just because that gives it a great sort of pungent flavor. So we're gonna do that and stir that in. And now I think it's time for our kale. This is about 4 stalks of kale, roughly chopped, and with the rib cut out. We're gonna sprinkle that in. The rest of the bunch of kale I blanched and froze for probably a future soup or a pasta dish or something to that effect. I'm gonna stir that in. As you can see, it's getting real thick now. I probably want to add in some more broth, which I'm going to do right now. going to make it 3 cups. And we're going to keep that going. Kale makes it pretty colorful and healthy. And it smells real good. So once this is at its point, the next thing we're going to do is add our cooked pulled chicken. We're not going to use all this. This is for some future use. And today, and some pre-cooked brown rice. I didn't want to cook the rice in the soup because brown rice takes about 30 minutes to cook, so that's kind of a little long for what we're doing. So, fluff up the wild rice. Did I say brown rice? It's wild rice. Okay, we're going to keep going. And when that comes to the boiling point, we're going to finish her up. So, our creamy chicken, kale, and wild rice soup is beginning to bubble. So at this point in time, we're going to add in a couple of handfuls of this cooked chicken. Like I say, I cooked it all because I'll be using it for something. And you know, the appetizers are coming up, so there's that. I don't think we need all this wild rice either. So we'll put that in, stir it around, see how much we have. Wipe the hand, touch the chicken. It's cooked, so it's not a cross-contamination thing, it's a greasy thing. And we're going to stir that in. Oh man, that looks and smells so good. I'm going to put the rest of the wild rice in here. It did take all. This was a cup of wild rice cooked according to package directions, which in this case was 3.5 cups of salted water or broth, but I didn't use broth because we were going to be making it with broth. So we didn't really need that extra flavor, but if you were using it for something else, broth is always the way to go. Years ago, I used to make wild and brown rice mixtures with broth and fruit juice and fruit that were so much fun to make and so tasty, savory and sweet. You know, I like that combination to eat. And we got some half and half. There's only about 3/4 of a cup in there, but I got some more. And boom. So that's about 1.5 cups. And we're going to stir that in and heat that through. And we might need some more because the soup is still pretty thick. And I'm dying to taste it. So I'll just have to wait till it's heated through. So we're going to keep stirring this and heat it until the cream is heated through. Okay, our stirring is finished. Our cream is warmed through. I'm going to turn the heat off because everything is cooked. It went in that way. The kale is just a little bit crunchy still, but as the soup cools off, that kale is going to continue to thicken. Sorry, soften, not thicken. It's hard to get on a spoon, so we gotta pop it back up there. But as you can see, it's a lovely consistency. It's dripping all over my hands. I have to take a bite. Oh, that's nice. A perfect Sunday supper. Just some crusty bread or a salad or something, or just by itself because it's very filling because it's a thick and hearty soup. And I suppose we should ladle it into a bowl and see what it looks like. Okay, the other day when I talked about soup bowls, this is what I got for soup bowls. This is a piece of my wedding china, which I brought along for showful purposes, and it is showy. And there we go. In order to properly display it, we need to clean up that edge that I dribbled all over. That's what we do in restaurants. And there's our chicken, kale, and wild rice soup. If you want, you can top it with some oyster crackers. The water's ready. Or a couple of bready croutons. And every time I tip it, it goes back into the thing, but there it is. Eat it with your eyes right now, make it, and then eat it with your mouth. I want to thank you for enjoying, and for joining me for our first installment of Soup Sundays. This one is what I'm going to call a keeper. And I'm going to portion it up and freeze it, share some with my neighbor. And because I don't know how to make small batches of soup. This day took me back to my days at Foodies when we made gallons and gallons and gallons of from scratch soups for the public, and they were one of our most popular items, and it taught me a lot. I also used to make soup for that gourmet food shop that I've mentioned a couple of times in Duxbury. It was called the Gourmet Galley, and she hired me to make soups before I started making prepared meals for her. So I've had a lot of practice making soup, and we're gonna play with our soups for the rest of the winter.